West Africa. And when I got off the plane, I found myself on my knees kissing the ground. This was not something that I planned to do or even imagined that I would be doing. So I want to encourage you to make it a priority in your family to be the one that makes that journey back across the Middle Passage, so that in that way your family can return home, your ancestors will be pleased, and you will be forever changed. I had a perspective before I went to Africa, and I had a whole new perspective that had lasted me to this moment because I went to Africa and got woke. Ashe? Asheo. All right, so we're gonna, I hope everybody had some breakfast and, got that good energy that we had on the parking lot yesterday with that wonderful DJ that they had here. And we're gonna start the day off on a positive note. All right, you with me? Thank you. Okay, yeah, because we need your energy. Okay. One day sana, one day sana, one day sana, mina walio, one day sana, one day sana, one day sana, mina walio, akiamole, akiamole, one day sana, mina walio. Akimole, one day Samina Walio, one day Sana, one day Sana, one day Samina Walio, one day Sana, one day Sana, one day Samina Walio.
right, give God a hand of praise for that wonderful, 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 wonderful celebration. Again, for the second day, we want to welcome you to the most powerful place on the planet called the Empowerment Temple. Amen. We give God a hand of praise for the house and those who dwell therein. We want to let you know that this is a dynamic day where we have wonderful speakers and presenters. But before we go any further, let us center ourselves with the sovereign, most high creator God. We thank you, Elohim, we bless you. Magnify your presence in this space through those whom you created for such a time as this. Fill our hearts with your love, fill our minds with your wisdom, fill our hands with your courage, fill our feet with your strength. As we run this race, as we fight this battle, as we love those whom society deems to be unlovable.
Good morning, National Assembly. My name is Leonetta Eli. I've had already some beautiful rituals. Thank you to our drummers, call in our ancestors, to the pastor, such an incredible host for us already. I am here to do just one more ritual intention for us. Okay. Everybody is working so hard behind the scenes. If you see somebody with a gray shirt, please tell them thank you. They're doing an incredible job. It's a lot of work. So what I want to have us do is just take a moment to ground ourselves with our breath. We're going to come home to ourselves. This day has been planned with a lot of intention. There's a lot of beautiful things to come, and we want to make sure that we're fully present for it so that we can soak up all the goodness. So if you're comfortable, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes or soften your gaze. Maybe you can find something that you feel comfortable looking at. We're going to draw our attention to our breath that's always with us in the background, whether we're conscious of it or not. Slowing down your breath with a deep inhale in, 3, 2, 1, and a deep exhale, 3, 2, 1. And I invite you to continue to breathe this way. And I want you to envision all of yourself, the pieces of yourself scattered out in front of you. Sometimes we're moving so quickly, all the tasks, all the things that capture our attention, our mind share. Just imagine those as little pieces of yourself out in front of your visual field. And on your inhale, I invite you to see all those pieces and just imagine them pulling into your heart center space, coming back home to yourself and your center. And on the exhale, settling them in. So inhale, drawing pieces of yourself to your heart center, coming home to yourself. And exhale, settling into place. There's lots of things in this moment that are keeping us from ourselves or dividing our attention. So just taking a moment to all those things in your personal life and the collective space that we share, drawing them home to yourself. And as you come home to yourself, set an intention for this day, how you want to show up, how you want to take in all the brilliance you're going to hear from the stage, but also from the person sitting next to you. How you want to interact with the people, new and old, that you're going to interact with and see today. taking one final deep inhale and one exhale, settling in. And you can open your eyes, come back to our collective shared space. Thank you so much. I wish you the best day. There is many beautiful things ahead, so thank you.
Coming to the stage, Maya Rockymore Cummings.
Good morning. Giving all honor and glory to God. How is everybody this morning? I just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to give thanks certainly to God, to Reverend Turner for letting us be in his space, to the former pastor, Jamal Bryant, who this space, when I came, my late husband, Congressman Elijah Cummings, and I was come here, and the pastor of the church then was Pastor Jamal Bryant, who's sitting in the second row back here. And we enjoyed every service we ever sat in. You are prophetic, my brother. And when you get on that stage and you open your mouth, you just speak straight from God. And so I thank you for your leadership, particularly as we target and everything else in this country. I want to ask you, how does it feel? How does it feel to be right? To be a people who are so prophetic, so profound, so insightful, that you're on the right side of history almost every time. And you were in the right side of history in 2024 when a career prosecutor, a law and order candidate who happened to be a black woman was supported by a majority of African Americans, and yet the country chose a felon, somebody who has been credibly accused of rape. And so the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are a people who have always known and seen through basically the games that are being played at the national and the global stage. And we have found space and time to hold ourselves, to keep ourselves even in the midst of what right now I call certainly not a racial reckoning, but what they are attempting is a racial reset. They are seeking to take us back more than 50 years. They are seeking to roll back the hands of time and to roll back the clock. But I know what's true, and you know what's true, and that's that we're not going back. And because we're not going back, we have to actually be the people who envision a future where all of us have the opportunity to live our best lives in this country. And that means that we have to be bold in our vision. We have to be bold in our actions. Now, yes, it might mean, revisiting the boycotts of yesteryear, but it's absolutely going to mean that we're going to have to do some new things. We're going to have to actually play chess instead of checkers. And I just want to leave you with one word of welcome, certainly on my behalf and also in honor of the memory of my late husband, Elijah Cummings. In his last year of life, he wrote a book called We're Better Than This, My Fight for the Future of Our Democracy. And in that book, he warned the American people. He said, do not reelect Donald J. Trump, because if you do, we will not have a democracy. And so what have we found since January of 2025? He has come into office and he is systematically trying to dismantle every element of the United States of America. And you know what my response is now? Good. Because it never worked for us in the first place. So we've got to be about the business of what comes next. And I am telling you right now, the vision that I'm about to unfold, I am calling for liberation democracy. And this is a democracy that works for every single one of us, where public policy is not just for the rich, wealthy, and white, where it serves every one of us, where we are not dispossessed in our own land, that where is Angela Rye? We built this stuff. And so for free, and that's actually what I'm going to end on. I'm going to end on this. In the last days of the Biden administration, I actually I heard that he was looking for things to do in his last days in terms of in terms of, pardons and other things that he could do. And so I was just like, well, let me give him something that he can do. As everybody knows, H.R. 40. Does anybody know what H.R. 40 is? H.R. 40 is a bill that's been around for like the early 80s. It was introduced by members of the Congressional Black Caucus calling for reparations for African Americans for slavery. And I would add, and not just for slavery, but for Jim Crow too. And it's a bill that's been kind of like just a shiny little piece of something that people wave every now and then. And I was just like, well, how can we make this real? I was just like, well, I wrote to the president. I said, listen, President Biden, you have done something great. You have made Juneteenth a national holiday. That is wonderful. Why don't we take this one step further and just, take this whole question of H.R. 40 off the congressional table, and you just make it happen as an executive order. Now, while I was doing this, a friend of mine who was a friend of the granddaughter of, what was his name? The Caribbean American who fought for African American rights, Marcus Garvey. They said, oh, Maya, listen, we're looking for a pardon for Marcus Garvey. They framed him, some years, decades ago, and we're looking for a pardon. I said, well, I'm calling for reparations, but, I'll put you in contact with the people who I'm in contact with. And don't you know, and by the way, I made it easy for them. I wrote the executive order. I developed it for them so that all they had to do was sign it. And don't you know, they did not sign that executive order. All you had to do was lift a finger and sign, and it was not. And so what I'm saying today is that we have to be about we have to believe in our own dignity. That policy works for us as it does for any other people, whether they be Japanese Americans who were interred after World War II, in the World War II, whether it be Jewish people who received reparations as a part of what they endured in Germany, with the support of the United States of America back then, because we were financing everything through, certainly the monies that flowed after the World War II. So we have to believe in ourselves and have enough, certainly enough belief in ourselves and belief in the dignity of the African American people to stand up for what is right, to stand up for what we need and the recognition and the recompense we need for what we've done in this country. And so welcome to Baltimore City. Welcome to this wonderful event. And I just want to say a shout out to thank you to David Johns and Angela Rye for all the organizing they've done around this. Welcome, thank you.
All right, good morning everyone. Maya, thank you so much. I'm gonna give you hugs, sis. Thank you so much. Good morning, State of the People. All right, we're happy to be here with you all this morning. I have the great privilege and honor of bringing to the stage, I know some of you all have seen the clip that we've run from the documentary piece on State of the People Power Tour, and there were so many people that ensured that this event could happen in 12 cities and 10 states throughout the country in 6 weeks. And on the other, yeah, that's right, wow, we tied, y'all. But they are too, and so every time people shout me out, I want you to know it is not just me. There are people doing graphics. There are people doing websites. There are people capturing content. There's somebody working on the live stream. There are people greeting you outside as volunteers. There are people that hold vendor tables and resource tables and speakers and delegate training. There are people that are helping people's records to be expunged. There are counselors and lawyers and accountants and all kinds of folks that make this thing happen. So it is not an Angela effort. David Johns, as brilliant as your work has been on 32 black papers, 32 black papers for a black agenda in this country, it is not just David Johns. There are hundreds of us. We are legion, and you are going to meet part of them right now. They are part of our national team. They are local city leads. They're going to come up now and tell you just a little bit about State of the People in their cities, very briefly, because we have, sorry, you're right, they're right here. They're right here. I don't know what I was looking for back there. Y'all come join me. I'm by myself. I just said we legion. I'm by myself. Come on. Yes, come right here. Is there one? Thank you. Come on. All right. So I just want you all to see these beautiful. Please give a round of applause to our city leads that have come. Some folks couldn't make it. They had Juneteenth. Oh, we got a city leader that just walked in, Dewana Thompson. Yes, shout out Dewana Thompson. Come up here, Dewana. But I wanted to just give them just a brief moment. Y'all, brief. Okay, because we have a panel. To share a little bit about their experience as city leads, why this work is important, why we must continue, and it couldn't end with a tour stop. The work is continuing, and we're so grateful for you. I'm going to kick off with Bajia Edie, who is not just North Carolina, Durham, and Raleigh's city lead, but also our head of operations. So, Bajia, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you so much, Angela. To my brothers and sisters, we had to come to Baltimore. We were stopped too in North Carolina, and I'll tell you why most of us stayed on the tour since North Carolina. We had a total of 7 different events, right? Town halls, rallies, community listening sessions. The event that touched us the most in North Carolina was on the final day. Miss Linda was at the rally. We gave away food just like last night. We had food trucks, she ate, she participated, but what she said was, had I not come here, I wouldn't have eaten today. So for us, it was more than hosting an event and being seen. We had to be the hands and feet of our community. And once it clicked with all of us, we just stand on for the ride now. So we don't know where we going next, but we going next. We go continue to show up for each of you because we owe it back. It's built by us, for us, to empower us all. And I love you more.
All right. Good morning. My name is Gayleen Canoyton, and I'm from the great Commonwealth state of Virginia. And we were in Richmond, Virginia in May, and it was a very enlightening experience. You know, Virginia, this election coming up for us is going to make us the bedrock for democracy in the nation. So this election is very important. So we made sure that we focused on the empowerment of the vote, the empowerment of people's needs, the empowerment of economic empowerment as well, too. And so it was great to see the young folks that we can't come. We had one young man named Elijah Lee, and I believe he's on the State of the People Power Instagram. And this young guy is 11 years old. I mean, he's in 11th grade. And he walked in, and he was on the town hall panel, and he said, you know, I've been in AP for 2 weeks exams, and I got prom tomorrow, so I don't have time to sugarcoat anything. And this young man was so inspiring because he is looking, his generation are looking for leaders like us to stand up so they can come in and follow and do what they need to do. And I've been following him since he was 12 years old. And to see young leaders like this is so inspiring for me because they are ready to go to work. They're looking for us to lead. This past election for them was defeat, but they're ready to fight. And even for me, with this conversation, I have my son with me. He's working today, but he'll be here shortly. But even for him, he felt defeat because he works for the federal government. And in Virginia, we have many people that have lost their jobs working for the federal government. And so we have to make sure that we keep people inspired. I see we have Alexis Rogers, our other lead that was here, Alexis that was there. And we're still meeting every other Monday. We're going to be meeting every other Monday to continue this work. There's not one silver, and I'm going to say it like this, bullet. There's not. Everyone has to do their part, and everyone must work within their space. And as we come together, and Dr. West Bellamy was our lead in Virginia, everyone's talents come together as a puzzle. You know, as I said last night to this group, that I was the eldest in that room. I'll consider myself a senior millennial. But I was in the 60s, And this generation's George Floyd, and I didn't say this last night, but I should have, but this generation's George Floyd and Breonna Taylor was my generation of JFK, Martin Luther King, and Robert F. Kennedy. Seeing that on television. You know, so it's a shame that we have to repeat this again and again. So everyone has to work in that space, and that's what we're doing in Virginia. We're going to turn out to vote in Virginia. We're going to make sure that what's happening in the White House doesn't come into Virginia, because we are the last blue progressive state in the South with a woman's right to choose, with expanded voting rights, with our LGBTQ, and we have 3 constitutional amendments, and I'm going to wrap it up. They're so important. We are the last state that doesn't have any form of restoration of rights, and we have an opportunity to have this in our Constitution. That's going to be on the ballot for us when we go to vote in November. Not to pass, but if we get the right folks, when we get the right folks in the office in November, then we'll be able to pass the constitutional amendment on restoration of rights, women's reproductive rights, and also a marriage equality in Virginia. So we have it. Thank you.
Baltimore, how you doing? So listen, why my teammate not with me? Look. Listen. We are up here. We represent the Newark City Tour. Anybody here from New York or New Jersey and you moved down to Maryland? It's always one. And so listen, I'm Dr. Gabby Cudjoe-Wilkes. I had the pleasure of serving as the city lead for Newark, New Jersey.
Desiree Peterkin-Bell, I had the pleasure of serving as the national comms lead, and I'm also on the national team. And so I'll talk a little bit more later, but Dr. Gabby, go.
All right, so listen, we're going to be brief. Newark was absolutely outstanding. We had the honor of being the middle point of this tour. And so as Angela mentioned, we hit 12 cities in 6 weeks. Newark was the 5th city. And so we had the opportunity to learn from our colleagues who had gone before us and to hopefully pass some learnings down to our colleagues after us. I want to tell you 2 things that were so phenomenal in Newark. And then I'm going to leave some for Desiree, because I know you got some. So in Newark, 2 things. One thing is they told us that nobody would come because we were a Tuesday stop. They told us that nobody would come because Newark didn't want to hear about the work we were doing, or Newark was too much in their own silos to come together and represent. I want you all to know we had almost 500 people in the middle of the day on a Tuesday. And they were there not just for the free food, and they were there not just for the entertainment, they were there for the information. I want you to know this. We assumed that our rally would be the most well-attended portion of the day, which was from 4 to 7 o'clock. We were incorrect. The listening session and the town hall were the most well-attended aspects of our event. That means that Newark was not just coming to get information, but they came to share with us what they needed. And so that was so critical, so important. The second thing I want to share with you that I loved is that we also had a strong showing of young people. Over 200 folks in high school were at our stop, which y'all know is critical. And we were able to end the day with a local high school who actually got the kids on the bus and to us in record time and ended our day. And so one of the things that I just want you all to know is that this work is intergenerational. And what we saw in Newark at the midway point, there was a crisis that happened just a couple days prior. I'm going to let Desiree speak to that. But what we saw in Newark is what we're seeing in every other city, that folks want to be engaged. Don't tell people what they will or will not do. We kept saying all power to the people in Newark because it was the people who showed up and the people who pushed us and the people who made sure we had the right. I ain't got no help in here. The people came and made sure that we talked about what we should talk about, and we served the food that we should serve, and we had the conversations that may not have been comfortable but were necessary. And everyone from our volunteers to the main speakers participated and made not only our stop phenomenal, but made an indelible impact on the rest of the tour. So we're just proud of the work we did, but something special happened in Newark that I want Desiree to speak to.
Yeah, so one thing I want to say about the people is there's a reason why this tour is not connected with one person. Not one elected official, not any type of electoral calendar. The reason why this tour is so important is it's connected to the people, you, the community. There's a reason why this is happening. We want to connect with you. We want to build with you. And you're teaching us. There is so much that we learned on the tour at Newark. So much. I had the opportunity to serve as a Newark comms lead, but also on the national team. I've also had the opportunity to serve as a public official in the city of Newark. And so the time that we did have the authority testing the limits of power and arresting the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Newark Mayor Ras J. Baraka, the power of the entire tour came together in a way we had never seen.
Absolutely.
We had never seen the community. And as Dr. Gabby said, it was intergenerational, but it was also people who were popping up from everywhere talking about, where do you need me?
Yep.
What do I do? I'm here to help. And that is what this tour is also about. We also had an amazing opportunity to have volunteers come from all over the Northeast. Not just New York and New Jersey, but all over the Northeast. This one particular volunteer, Miss Kenya, she came in at 7 a.m. in the morning to help us. 7 a.m. in the morning, and she was houseless. She gave her time, her spirit, her energy, her heart to us. And we were delighted that she did that. And then we were able to help her back. We went back to her community where she was staying with all her friends, and we went back with grocery cards, and we asked, how else can we help? And that's what this tour is about. We're not here for a minute. We ain't here for a moment. Right. We're here for a movement.
Come on now.
That's what we're here to do. And that's why we decided to come to Baltimore. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to serve. We're going to keep it moving.
From Team Newark, we give y'all Baltimore some love, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Baltimore. How y'all doing?
Good morning.
Good, good. I'm Kevin with the California Black Power Network, and I'm joined here by
Hannah Naomi Jones, and I'm here with Live Free USA under the direction of Pastor Michael McBride.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We were holding down the Los Angeles stop of the tour, which I had the pleasure of being the last of our stops before we made here. But what we've been saying is that it was not a stop, it was a start. And for many, it was a continuation of the work that we've been doing, right? We run a coalition of organizations, Black-led organizations, all throughout California who've been working on housing, reparations, pushing back on tough on crime, criminal justice, the whole gamut. And so this was really an opportunity for us to bring organizations together that hadn't met each other, to deepen relationships with organizations who somewhat knew each other, and most importantly, bring community into the conversation and allow them to step into new political homes that were fighting on various sets of issues that they may be interested in. And so we had hundreds of folks join us throughout our 2 days. We were actually in 2 different cities in South Central LA, the heart of Black LA, as well as in Pasadena, which was very important for our committee because folks may know the Eaton fire that spread throughout Pasadena, Altadena, was devastating. Altadena is a well-established, vibrant Black community in LA County that was devastated by the fire. And so we had an opportunity to hear from folks who were directly impacted, lost everything in the fire, who have been organizing and working to make sure folks were getting mutual aid, folks were getting responses from elected officials, and it was 2 powerful days. And right, the work still continues. Now we had, well, first of all, I got to give a shout out to our other city leads, right? Hannah and I were joined by Adrian Shropshire and the team at Black Pack. We were joined by Derek Steele and his team with SJLI and Bold Black LA, and Jeffrey Wallace and his team with Leaders Up. Phenomenal set of folks who jumped in and just filled gaps wherever they needed, and that's the heart of this, right? How do we all contribute what we need to contribute? Beyond that, we had like 30, 40 people who met with us every week and sometimes 2, 3 times a week to make this happen, and they are energized. They are ready to keep going. They're hitting us up now like, hey, what's the next step? What are we doing, right? So again, it was not a start. It was very much so a beginning. And so we're going to continue that work and look forward to keeping things moving. Hannah, let me pass to you.
Thank you, Kevin. So real quick, everybody say all politics are local.
All politics are local.
I have been around this country in the DMV for the last 5 years. What this stop has done, it brought me home. I'm from Inglewood. I'm from LA. When I got off the freeway where we had our event in South Central with my 19-year-old daughter in the back and my mother in the front, I saw the homeless folks, the transient, and I was reminded my father was born on Skid Row in 1930. When I got off the freeway, I was reminded my cousin was shot just a mile away in the back down the street. It brought me home. And I want to tell you that's part of your power, to turn your pain into power. And you have to know your power, to build your power, to wield your power. So what you're doing here today, just know you can turn your pain into power. Plug in to the state of the people, because this is a collective power movement. I just want to thank you all. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, state of the people. And I'm going to pass it to the last. Oh, we got one more, Nicole.
One more, and I'm gonna keep it short. Greetings, Baltimore. Awesome. My name is Nicole Hayden. I bring you greetings from Louisville, Kentucky, a city that is still healing, a city that is still rising, and a city that is still demanding justice. I also bring you greetings with the spirit of Breonna Taylor. This project, these how many weeks you say? How many weeks we've been organizing? 6. I just want to get y'all to understand, 2 calls a day, every day for the last 6 weeks. In Louisville, it was so impactful. We changed lives and we healed together. We had workshops that were standing room only. We gave away we gave away actual ways to garden. How to build a garden. We took it back and gave it the basic skills you need today. And that is what I'm most proud of, most celebrated, is the people from the community came out as they were still hurting. We came together and we healed together. So I'm so grateful to be in this space. I'm so grateful to continue this work. And I'm so grateful for the leaders who we have to go and get answers and questions and everything else from these leaders. So thank you so much on behalf of Louisville, Kentucky, and thank you, Baltimore.
Y'all give it up for Nicole. Listen, my name is DeWanna Thompson, and all of the people that you just saw come before me were the people that I was able to organize as the National Cities League, among so many others. And I just want to say that one of my mentors, Harry Belafonte, he said the agenda is to get an agenda. And when I thought about that, when Angela called us together several weeks ago, we all had so many things to do. We're still doing multiple things. But I heard that reverberate when she said, we got to get together. I heard him say to me, the agenda, DeWanna, is to get an agenda. And then I heard something else in my spirit, and it said, is there not a cause? If you don't know what that means, when David got ready to slay Goliath, they didn't want him to come out there. He said, is there not a cause? And so right now, there is a cause. There is an agenda. There is a reason why we are assembling together as the State of the People Power Tour, because we have no other choice. It's a sense of urgency. And so I did help to organize Birmingham, Alabama. Deanna Reed, who was our fantastic city director, she wanted me to give you the words from her because she could not be here, because that's the kind of organizer I am. She said, let the people know that in the place that birthed the civil rights movement, home to freedom evangelists like Angela Davis and Fred Shuttlesworth, where hundreds of children filled the streets to call for change in Birmingham, it is happening again, y'all. She said it's happening again. Power is being built. The waters are stirring. From Lowndes to Mobile County, the fight continues. Now more than 15 of our partner organizations came back together this past week to reimagine what organizing should look like in this moment and what we can be doing to move forward. Where brothers like the one we met yesterday in Gate City, the PJs, have access to good jobs and can afford shoes for their 2 sons, who has autism and deserves quality health care. They are able to give him some resources because of that collaboration that came together. So the fight continues. And we won't let anything, not a super red majority, not hatred, not gerrymandering, nor the prison system turn us around. That's the kind of work that we're doing right now in the city of Birmingham. That's the kind of work that's happening across this tour. There is a cause. Thank y'all.
Okay, everybody, let's give it up for our city leads and our national lead for the cities, DeWanna Thompson. We're going to get started with our panel on economic power, entrepreneurship, and labor. And right now, I think the voice of God is going to read these names in, or am I doing it? I think I'm doing it. Okay, well, first up, we have my good brother and friend, Alfonso David, who will be moderating today's conversation of Global Black Economic Forum. Alfonso, and I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the panel. Hey, voice of God. You was busy. Oh, you don't have a mic.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. There are a number of people that I'm going to introduce to participate in this conversation. The first is Rashad Robinson. And I will give them their formal flowers after they sit down, but I want to get everybody on stage. Rashad Robinson, April Barrett, Kim Blackwell, Larry Parks, and the Reverend Jamal Bryant. Okay, so we are confronting some challenging times, but it also presents us with an opportunity to raise awareness, to mobilize, and to educate. And before we get started, I want to thank Angela Rye, Tamika Mallory, and the organizers of State of the People for bringing us together today. I also want to thank the Baltimore Host Committee and the National Host Committees. So as all of you know, Black people and people of color have confronted dire threats for years. And unfortunately, we're facing another moment that is confounding for some people, and it threatens to take us backwards, but it also calls us to rise again. We have risen before, and we are being asked to do so again. And this moment forces us to collectively prepare for a crisis. It forces us to engage in policy that affects our community, and it forces us to strategically plan to center our liberation at the forefront of this work. This morning, as you just heard, I'm joined by experts in the fields of economic power, labor, entrepreneurship, and community safety. These are warriors who help us dissect what we believe is most important for us to focus on in this moment and in the future. Right next to me is Rashad Robinson, who is a civil rights leader. He has spent decades working to advance racial justice and equity. He served for more than a decade as the president of Color of Change, which is an organization that was founded after Hurricane Katrina with the purpose of building Black cultural and political power in the United States. He has organized and led many successful campaigns to challenge policies and practices that negatively impact people of color. For example, he organized a campaign to pull funding from an organization that was responsible for stand your ground laws, which was implicated in the 2012 death of Trayvon Martin. He also persuaded businesses, including MasterCard and PayPal, to stop accepting payments from white nationalist groups, and he developed and co-led the largest boycott in U.S. history, which was a $7 billion boycott of Facebook. He has a book coming out from Random House, and he currently leads a consulting practice that advises not-for-profit organizations and corporations on building campaigns and advancing racial justice. Next to him is April Barrett, who is the president of the Service Employees International Union. It is one of the largest labor unions in the country, representing more than 2 million workers in more than 100 occupations in the US, in Canada, and in Puerto Rico. April is a fighter who has been working for people of color and for working people, a visionary leader who's been at the forefront of the labor movement, and this is not new for her. As the president of SEIU in California, which was the largest long-term care union, she fought on behalf of more than 400 long-term care providers working in nursing homes and private homes throughout the state. And she is not just focused on better wages and benefits and working conditions, she's also focused on using our power to help eradicate generational poverty, dismantle structural racism, and strengthen our democracy. Third, we have Kim Blackwell, who is the chief executive of PPM, a national award-winning brand strategy firm. For more than 20 years, Kim has been heralded as one of the top executives in new media, marketing, and advertising. She is a trusted advisor to executives all over the country, in public and private companies, on a range of issues, from organizational effectiveness to change management. She has also served in several administrations as one of the country's 8 female CEOs on the National Women's Business Council, which is a nonpartisan federal advisory council, and they advise the President of the United States, Congress, and the Small Business Administration on economic issues. Fourth, we have Larry Parks, who is the co-founder of Forethought Advisors, an advocacy, lobbying, and strategic corporate consultants firm. They specialize in financial services, which is something we should all be concerned about. He previously served as Senior Vice President for the Federal Home Loan Bank in San Francisco, and he worked with Congress, the White House, financial institutions, advocates, local businesses, and civic organizations to help shape equitable policies. And there are many things that he's done, but one that I want to highlight is that Larry developed and implemented a $100 million fund where he was working with the bank to provide capital to small businesses, lending and job training organizations. And it was an attempt to address the growing inequity or inequality gap. He has also served on the White House's National Economic Council and Domestic Policy Council. Finally, we have Reverend Jamal Bryant, who we all know is a senior pastor at the New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Many of you know Reverend as who's been engaging in his advocacy on anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. In February of this year, he announced a 40-day initiative to boycott the retailer Target for reportedly modifying the diversity, equity, and inclusion commitments. And that boycott has now turned into a strike or a boycott, fast to a boycott. And he also recently announced another boycott of the Dollar General Store as a result of their policies. He has said that while some embrace the mantra, eat, pray, love, our path has been forged through fast, pray, and resist. So thank you so much for joining us. This is a question for any of the panelists, and I want to begin with, when you think about the foundation of Black economic power today, we're talking about Black economic power. What is one thing that you believe we're getting right, and one thing that you think needs to change urgently? Any first takers? What do we have to change? And what do you think we're doing right?
I would say what we are doing right are starting businesses. I think that when I look at the rates of African American women and African American even men now, I saw something as recent as this week saying the growing rate of African American men starting businesses. We know that that's a key to unlocking our financial futures in the sense of entrepreneurship. So I would immediately say the act of starting businesses is one of the things we're getting right. One of the things that I think we need to look at by way of change is just what we do when we get the money. And so I think the literacy and readiness continues to be an opportunity for us to get better in how we continue to build wealth and generational wealth.
Anyone else? Larry?
Sure. I'd say a couple things. One, what we're doing right, I think the growth in unionization in our community, the three ways in which we build wealth in the society, it's the government, it's the markets, and it's unionization. And oftentimes we were denied that opportunity. Baltimore is a perfect example. It's a very unionized city. And what that does, and we see in the LA disturbances that are going on, the ability of the immigrants to have been unionized means that there are people there to do their legal work. There are people there to make sure that they don't starve while they're doing what they're doing. And it's also a place where a check actually is being fought for, where in a capitalist system that is looking quickly to AI you out of a job. So you've got to have somebody who's actually fighting for you. So I think our unionization efforts and what we're doing there, and the fact that we have a sister who's heading the SEIU, I give her another round of applause, because that's really overcoming a lot of obstacles. I think the other example I would say that we're doing right, I think we've always got to remember that our growth really comes through collectivism and not individualism. And so there was an effort in which was being done in the Biden administration to basically use the community development financial institutions as a source of lending for small businesses and business growth, and also build partnerships with financial institutions through the Community Reinvestment Act and CDFIs to actually take workers who are in businesses that the owners want to sell and actually make them worker-owned co-ops. There were efforts that were being made by the Biden administration to deal with paying people for pre-apprenticeship programs. So we talk a lot about people getting in their apprenticeships, but one of the obstacles is that you got to quit a job to get a job. And so the idea that money was being made to make that happen. And that was going on in Milwaukee. And the last thing was the investment in new industry. And we'll get into this a little bit more, but the way the Biden administration was basically layering financing and actually coming in with equity from the government for business, for new industry, and with that equity demanding that you have unionized workers and minority contractors. That was the ROI for the investment, for return on investment. So that was a changing form of capitalism. And I think those are the things we were getting right, and that came from, and I'll say what we're doing wrong now and shut up. That came from the fact that we were voting. We vote, these things happen. We don't vote, these things don't happen. So in 2020, we voted. In 2024, we didn't. And the absence of so many black men from the voting polls, it wasn't that they voted for Trump, but not voting at all, helped to swing this election to somebody who's hostile to everything I just laid out. So there are huge consequences for benefits for voting and huge consequences, and that's, I think, what we did wrong, not voting.
April?
So it's so easy for me to talk about what I think we need to do better, but I'll take a stab at the right. As a community, we understand the power that we hold when we come together en masse and choose to act collectively. As Larry was talking about, we understand the power of our collective dollar and how we can use that power to advocate and make change, as we're seeing demonstrated, in the Target boycott, as we've seen demonstrated in the campaigns that Rashad has led. But I think we have to understand that we can't just do that when it's a crisis, but how do we do that to really continue to build power over a long period of time? But the one thing that I want us to think about doing as a community is ending generational poverty. We are real intent on how do I get my bag, but we don't think about how am I using what I have to help the person beside me get theirs. And that takes us to corporations. It is not just government's responsibility to put a Band-Aid on poverty. It is up to us to hold corporations accountable for perpetuating economic exploitation and paying poverty wages. When my union led the Fight for 15, it saddened me how many of us said somebody at McDonald's don't deserve a living wage because all they do is flip burgers. Right? So how about we change our mindset to one where all work has dignity and no one should work 8 hours a day, 5 or 7 days a week, and not be able to feed themselves and keep a roof over their heads, while corporations make money off of their labor. And so I think as a community, we have work to do about throwing off the shame of poverty that white supremacy has taught us, so that we can come together to end generational poverty and the economic exploitation that has followed us since the time we came to these shores.
And April, I want to follow up on that in building generational wealth. But before we get there, I want to give Rashad and the Reverend an opportunity to answer this question.
Yeah, it's really great to pick up off of this conversation, because when we think about sort of the story that gets told about where we are at and what we need from an economy, far too often we talk about economic inequality as unfortunate rather than unjust. Like it's almost like a car accident. It sort of happened, and not that there are folks sort of manufacturing inequality and benefiting from inequality across the board. And so it shows up all the time in these stories that get told. And so as a result, we get charitable solutions to structural problems. Folks saying, oh, this is so bad what's happening in Flint or Jackson with the water. Let's send water bottles instead of actually dealing with tax policies and economic structures which have made it so that the water is not clean. And so behind each of these things, we have to sort of recognize as a community, if we want to move forward, how do we both tell a story and build the type of power that moves more people into the conversation? Black people are not less likely to get a loan from the bank. Banks are less likely to give loans to black people. But we've been trained to say, to put the active voice on the people and the passive voice on the system. And so when we say black people are less likely to get a loan from the bank, people say, what's wrong with black people? Why don't we help them figure out how to deal with infrastructure which is targeted, excluded, exploited, and redlined us from the very beginning? When we say banks are less likely to give loans to black people, we say, what's wrong with the banks? And we get more people in the energy of actually holding banks accountable. Black people are not economically vulnerable. We've been targeted, attacked, exploited, and excluded. And when we change the story about how we talk about these things, we can move people to different solutions about what we do forward. Because to be clear, we're going to need a lot more folks invested in actually holding institutions accountable and changing the rules. So the key word in your question was power. And power is the ability to change the rules. And far too often, we mistake presence or visibility or awareness for power. When we mistake presence for power, we end up with the wrong story. So we will think that a black president means that we're post-racial. We will think that a black celebrity stopping the internet means that we have arrived and that America loves black people as much as America loves black culture, and America can love, celebrate, and monetize our culture and hate us at the same time. So it's power is the ability to change the rules, and when we do the work to change the rules, we change the system and we bring more people into the story and into the fight.
So we have more than one pastor on this stage this morning. No, I'm just kidding. The Rev.
Let me just say on record, Rashad is now my pastor. I just let me give him his flowers. Incredible. I think one of the things that we can say that we've done right is that when we began to focus around Target, it was almost the HBO movie Too Big to Fail. That a lot of our people saw ourselves as grasshoppers in our own eyes and said we wouldn't be able to make an impact. For years, going back to Dr. King, we've been touting that we've got $2 trillion or $12 trillion worth of spending power, the 11th wealthiest nation, but we couldn't see anything definitively that pointed to that. And so let me thank everybody who is here that collectively we have embodied the Kwanzaa principle of cooperative economics. Because of you just driving past the store, you have helped Target lose $12 billion in valuation. Because you went on and drove an extra couple of miles, the stock has dropped from $145 a share to $93 a share. Because of what it is that we're doing collectively without any celebrity endorsement or without any mainline civil rights organizations push, the CEO's salary has been cut by 42%. That is really on the sweat in the brow of what happens when we pull ourselves together. But in the words of my pastor Rashad, we have not really dealt with the system because while we want to claim victory, Target still has not changed their position. While we want to claim victory, the reality is all 24 of those Fortune 500 companies have been unmoved and unwavered because what we see as platinum is really just brass. And we still have another rock that we've got to climb up that hill. What we've got to do differently to answer that question is a part and parcel of how we got involved. My sisters in arms, Tamika Mallory and Nina Turner, have been doing the heavy lifting in the grassroots space. And I walked alongside to say that the church needs to be involved. Because for the last 30 years, the church has had prophetic laryngitis and hasn't spoken truth to power. And you've got a whole generation that doesn't see the value or the worth of the black church. And I would dare say in this safe space, Rashad, that this generation sees the black church as impotent as the Democratic Party. That they're present, but they're really not speaking to the issues, and they just assume you need to just come and be a part of it. And so what needs to happen is that more churches need to be involved and engaged. Let's not forget, every night of the Montgomery bus boycott, they went to the church. And while I am glad that we are here today, the overwhelming majority of your children do not come to church because they see it as an elective and not a part of the core curriculum. And so the heavy lifting, if I can change the passive voice, is what is the church not doing to make sure that this younger generation comes. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to recalibrate and really dig in and make that a better place.
Thank you. Thank you. So all of you have put a fair amount on the table in terms of what you think we're doing right and what needs to change. For everyone in this room and those that are watching online, we live in a capitalist country, right? And often people are thinking about the next dollar. How do I make sure I have enough money to pay for my needs, my necessities, the light bill, whatever it is? How do we move beyond survival economics, which is how do I get to the next thing to pay for that next bill? How do we move from survival economics to generational wealth? We know that in communities that are outside of the black community, people have generational wealth, right? They have inherited millions of dollars from their families. And so they live differently. They think differently when they approach work or they approach activities. How do we as a community think about shifting from survival economics to wealth generation? Right?
Well, I think that we have to start, and between Rashad and I, you probably I hope you don't get tired, but you're going to hear about power a lot. Because we are in a time where those of us who lean to the left of the political spectrum, I feel like we are playing Atari, while those that lean to the right are playing on a PS5. And so we are, we want to.
April, that's stolen. I want you to know they're going to hear that at New Birth Sunday. Thank you.
And that while we want to talk about policy, they know that it's all about power. Yep. And so everything that we want to see change must begin and end and include us knowing we have to build enough power to change the rules. Rules that were never written for us, by us, about us. We gotta create a new set of rules, of systems, of structures that are meant to benefit us for the outcomes that we want to see in our communities. And so one of the things that I've learned since January 20th is you can break stuff. You can break it apart, you can say it don't work, and the world don't stop. People keep getting up every day. Like they are breaking things. I don't like the way they're rebuilding them, but imagine if we have a plan about how we want to see it rebuilt, well, we can break stuff too, right? When you have enough power to break it and rebuild it around a vision for our shared prosperity, right? And so I am all about building enough worker power in order to create a system that actually meet the needs, not just the 21st, but 22nd century workers and a 22nd century economy and a 22nd century workforce.
Reverend, I know you had a comment on this.
I did, and my vantage point, again, through this panel is just through the lens of the church and the church's responsibility in economic development. For many years, for those of you who don't know, I'm from Baltimore, and right adjacent to where we are is a Jewish community. And a rabbi said to me, April, some years ago, he said, Jamal, stop asking your people to tithe. I said, Rabbi, if I do that, the church gonna close. Ain't no way. And he said to me something that really changed my perspective and thought process. He said, don't ask people to tithe if you've never taught them the budget. You can't ask people for 10% and you never showed them what to do with the 90. Absent of economic teaching, then tithing becomes a Ponzi scheme that says if you give this, then you're going to be debt free. You're going to be a millionaire. All your bills are going to get paid. And so I think part and parcel of the responsibility of the church, if we only hear about economics during the offering, then we're missing out. And the people on the platform can speak to it better than I can, but somewhere, Kim, in the orbit of 86% of black people don't own a single share of stock. 86% of our people don't own a single share of stock, and then on Sunday, the pastor says, invest in the kingdom, but doesn't tell me nowhere else to invest. And so I tell the members of our church in Atlanta, never go to a church where you can tell which car is the pastor's. Because if the teaching is authentic, then it should be 12 other people driving just like that. And so I think part and parcel of the responsibility of the church is to teach economic empowerment. And while I'm here, I think a lot of the blood drips off of the church's hands relative to gentrification. Because we're allowing all of these buildings to dilapidate around the church, all of these houses, and the church is not pulling together. How can we get it? Because in part, you just come to the hood to go to church and then drive back to the suburbs. And so there's got to be a real economic development agenda for the church on how do we maintain the block and sustain it and not watch Starbucks just come in and develop it.
Alphonse, if I may just make one more point. We used to have pensions. Wow. We used to have pensions in our community, and somehow somebody told us that pensions was bad and that 401ks was better. Right? And I think because they didn't want to invest in our pensions anymore, so they convinced us that our pensions was bad. How many folks here have pensions? Right? So pension funds invest in stocks. So folks who have pensions are stockholders, but we don't think of it that way. We don't think of that collective money that we put together that we all gonna benefit from, right? That collective economic power, that wasn't good enough for us because we wanted our own. We've allowed folks to teach us that when we put our resources together, it's not as good as when we are on our own, right? This lie of rugged individualism that's been taught that is really about disaggregating our power. We have to unteach ourselves I'm in a church, don't do that. We have to unteach ourselves the untruths that we've been told that was all about disaggregating our power.
I want to just add one little thing, and then I'll toss it over to you, Rashad, because so much to unpack there. But it goes back again, my dear brother Jamal speaks from the lens of the church. I speak from the lens of business and the lens of corporate America. And when you talk about stocks, it actually goes back also to the first point. You own stock and a reasonable amount of stock, which is not a lot. You have what's called shareholder in the sense of power. And what we sometimes miss are the opportunities to disrupt through our value in stock. And so whether it be, and I love how you phrase that, Alfonso, in the sense of survival economics to generational wealth, it really goes back to the fundamentals that we sometimes in the cross share, we have to do better with helping one another really kind of get the power of money. And it does not take a lot. How many of us had grandparents who actually had money under their beds, but also had money in the market? It didn't take, it doesn't take a lot. The other thing I want to say, and again, sometimes on these panels, I'm devil's advocate. Because sometimes with basic tenets and principles. I want to get back to the McDonald's example because I still believe in the McDonald's guy on fries, Calvin, who then becomes the owner operator. And so there are still ways in which we need to understand the game of chess inside of these organizations and being frontline employees and so forth, and where and how we do. There are still tracks and powers to wealth generation when we play the game. And I sometimes think we think that everything is stacked against us. And trust me, there are iniquities and there are systemic failures that we all are up here fighting on a day-to-day, but there are still advantages, and I know we're going to talk about the resources that are available to us that we have to amplify and share with one another. They are available. They do exist, and we need to learn how to shift the power back on our side and taking advantage of it. How many of you all know all of these access to scholarships and so forth, where monies are left on the table because we don't apply? We have to get better. We talk about the word accountability, and I want to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to the opportunities that exist. So if we want to really talk about shareholder value, it's not too late. You don't have to have $1 million. You don't have to have $1,000 to start playing the game and getting invested in the market.
So I really want to pick up off of this and first of all remind us of that even as we build power and we think that we're moving the ball forward, or we are, that there is a long and unforgivable history at every single turn of just as we build enough power that it gets ripped away. We can talk about the Black Wall Streets, but we can also talk about sort of all the things that have been done with home ownership over the last several decades, where the value of our homes gets diminished and it doesn't lead to the same pathway. And that is why political power combined with economic power is so incredibly important, because we're not going to just black capitalist ourselves out of the problems that sort of exist because of a set of rules that are designed for us to fail, because the larger power structure at every single turn, during the uprisings and during the pandemic, I heard a lot of people say we should move all of our money to black banks. I was like, I don't know if we should move all of our money to black banks, because all of our money's in black banks, they're going to destroy black banks, because that is the history of how these systems have worked. And so making sure that we have an integrated strategy is incredibly important. As a person who's went before many corporations during their shareholders meetings, from McDonald's to Facebook, and has won shareholder resolutions, I know that I would have never gotten there if it wasn't for some of the cities and some of the state leader, the comptrollers, that actually used their shares to actually give us enough power so that I could go in front of McDonald's and win along with SEIU, win on the racial equity audits that McDonald's was against, but the shareholders actually came out in our favor. That meant that we had to have elected officials in office that were thinking creatively about using the pensions and using their shares, and we also had to have an innovative strategy to actually use those things. And that's what I think is important around what it's going to take in an integrated strategy. Because even as we succeed, and I will end here, is that during 2020 and 2021 and 2022, I heard from so many leaders in the DEI community as I was going from corporation to corporation to try to make sure that the announcements that they were making were moving from presence to power. And I would go to these corporations, and the DEI folks over and over again would say, Rashad, you guys will get more with honey than vinegar. I have a direct relationship with my CEO. We are working really hard. They are committed, from the board to the CEO, of moving these things forward. And I was like, are they really committed? because I just saw an announcement from your CEO that they were giving my organization $1 million, and we don't even accept corporate money. So there was like not even a research even on how you were moving forward, but they committed. And then about a year later, folks started calling me saying their budgets were cut. Can you do something? Can you launch a campaign? But when we were trying to actually create some like deeper level alliance, they were popping bottles. And they were talking about how we got this and we're moving forward, the same way that some of us were popping bottles during the 8 years of the Obama administration. And so I want to make sure that when we get inside of these places that we don't think that we've arrived, that we recognize the long history of moving forward and them dragging us backwards. And that is why the conversation around building power has to move to the infrastructure of building power. It has to move to us each and every day, recognizing that we need more people on our side, working in our organizations and engage in the efforts, because we will always lose in the back rooms if we don't have people lined up at the front door. And that is the work that we have to build, and that's the infrastructure that's going to be required in this new era.
Okay. Larry?
Okay, so I'm getting back to your original question. I can't speak like Rashad, and I can't I appreciate everything he and the Reverend are saying. I think it's very important. I think three things we got to think about. One is wealth building also involves our history. And I think it's really endemic that we're here in Baltimore when Ta-Nehisi Coates did a book about what happened with redlining right here. I think it's also important that we talk about, and what that meant was wealth was taken. We were deprived of the opportunity to move where the market was going systematically. Here, DC, Philadelphia, New York, Detroit, Chicago. Before I left the Home Loan Bank of San Francisco, we did a little bit of a study to look at what was going on post-2008 crisis and wealth creation and housing. And one of the things we found was the black suburbs were being treated the same as the black inner city had been treated in the 60s. So if you looked at the Inland Empire in Los Angeles, Southfield, Michigan, PG County, Maryland, Hempstead, Long Island, and suburban Philadelphia on the Jersey side, you had the same sort of redlining and disinvestment. And the trend line was the same as it had been when it went with us in the inner city. So we got hit twice. Now, where this comes forward, my good partner here at work, Tim Simons, we owned a little property in addition to what we do for a living in DC, in a gentrifying area, what had been the hood that became a gentrifying area. And what we found as we invested in this property, the number of young white women, and a young white man, but mostly white women, coming with older white women. We were like, to buy the property. We were like, what is this? We found out it was grandma putting the down payment on the $500,000 condo for the granddaughter who worked in the nonprofit. So, and then when we pursued a little further, we realized the money from grandma came from the red line properties that we were denied. So our grandma couldn't put the money down like that because they weren't allowed to own the properties in the places that appreciated. And guess where grandma got her money from? Granddad had the GI Bill. So that's where the down payment came from. Now we all know in the South, the down payment, that people couldn't take advantage of the GI Bill. In the Northeast, from Boston to Washington and into the Midwest, you could, but only on the red line properties. So when you put all that, the fast forward of Jim Crow comes all the way through our capital standard today. Okay, so let's think about that. Now, I don't like to leave people with nothing with like just wallowing in our pain, because it's important to know our pain and know where we start. Now, what I think we're beginning to do right and what we can do right becomes back to the SCEIU sister right here, which is we get to the 80s. I'm going to bring you through some more history. We get to the early 80s, and 401ks were designed to be a supplement to the pension. Your individual investment on top of your pension fund, on top of Social Security, was designed to give you economic stability. What the Reagan folks did, and this is the power of voting, what the Reagan folks did is say, we're going to do away with the pension thing to make us competitive. So this became the competitiveness agenda. And in return, you're going to have a 401k where you individually are in charge of your own retirement, which retirement was never meant to be that way. All the way back to Social Security in the 1930s. It was always a collective. So when the Reagan people did that and sold us on individualism, again, I appreciate you being from Baltimore. So here's where Baltimore becomes really important. So Baltimore is a mixture of the Jewish community, the Catholic community, the Black community. So what had happened in the Jewish community? Collective investment. What happened in the Catholic community? Collective investment. Ever heard the Knights of Columbus? Started as an insurance fund because they wouldn't insure burials for Catholic workers in New Haven, Connecticut. Now it's the largest insurance fund in the world. Collective money. What does the Catholic Church own in Baltimore and everywhere else? Real estate. What was it for? Collective activity. What did they use it to do? Educate their people. They did stay in the cities and educate another group of people. But these are the counter to the WASP paradigm has been this Catholic and Jewish model of collectivism. So we've got to think about how we learn from people who were outside the system who became part of the system, if it's not as individuals. My final point on this one, because I know that you've got to move on, is that ways we can do this. So when you look at where we've done since the Civil Rights Movement, we've created a Black middle class that's larger than we've ever had before. It largely came through education, collective activity. Collective activity gave us the opportunity to go to school. What we've done with our resources since then is emulate the individualism. Buy the biggest house you can, get as far away from those people. What we can do, and what we've done in different places where markets have appreciated, is buy multifamily housing. Collectively have lenders lend for multifamily housing. Why? That's income property. That helps our people have a place to live, and it's a source of wealth creation. There have been some banks who have tried to do that on the Black Bank score, with fits and starts. Again, I come back to these community development financial institutions, CDFIs, become an important variable in that, especially in appreciating markets. Limited equity co-ops. This is a way for lower income families to obtain some degree of home ownership. So instead of your rent, part of your rent goes towards an ownership model. We lend to make sure you have an ownership in the collective building, you keep the building up, you have a share. It's using the shareholder model, but in the real estate you use. And I think, what we've seen, the Tenants Opportunity to Purchase Act, TOPA, that exists in D.C., which Marion Barry, again, through your politics, Coleman Young, Marion Barry, the mayor of Newark, they really came up with ways in which we came up with new ways to own in our communities that were gentrifying. And that program basically gave tenants the right of first refusal. There are a lot of tenant-owned buildings in D.C. where wealth is passed on because of the TOPA law. So it gets to your rules point, Rashad. But I think the key is looking at the rules through how they advantage other people becomes less intimidating, and you build broader coalitions, but you're building towards your objective, not their objective. It does help.
So you all have said a lot about how we get from survival economics to generational wealth, whether it be breaking the systems that exist now, not assuming that those systems can work for us. Two, to Kim's point, well, you're not taking advantage of the existing system anyway. There are so many things that we're not taking advantage of that as we think about rebuilding a system, take advantage of the system that exists now. To Rashad's point, and your point as well, Rev, is there's a political dynamic to all of this. It's not only about how we show up at the voting booth, it's also how we show up in the corporate boardrooms. It's how we show up when we get the titles. It's making sure that we're actually utilizing all of our respective roles when we show up in spaces to make sure we're thinking not only about ourselves, but collectively how we advance generational wealth. There are two things that I want to follow up on, and this will be for you, April, and then Larry and Kim. We've talked a lot about unions, right? But folks here may know people in unions. They may themselves be in unions. Or maybe there are folks here that don't know anyone who's in a union. Can you talk about why are unions important? And why are they important for Black people?
I think they're important in a lot of ways, but one example that I would make about the building of the Black middle class and why unions are important for Black folks. There were some folks who were able to go to school and get a degree and get a job in corporate America. But during and after the Civil Rights Movement, a large percentage of Black folks who were able to buy their first home, send their kids to college, had good public sector jobs, right? Like in Chicago, where I'm from, you got a job with the city or you got a job with the county. Like that was the way that your family could make it out the ghetto, right? And it was unions that made that possible. We forget that Black folks started being able to make family sustaining wages when they were able to come together and bargain, here's this word again, collective bargaining agreements, contracts that entitled them to a certain level of wages, benefits, and a standard on working conditions. And that is because of the power people were able to aggregate when they came together to do better for the whole. We've also seen over the last 40 years that is laid out clearly in the Powell memo, and if you haven't read it, I encourage you to go and get it. It is the right's old playbook, right? It is how they built enough power to put us in the political position that we're in now. And the Powell memo talked clearly about going after unions to take away the power of working people. In this country, it has been the power of unions, working people coming together to use their collective power to do better for all of us, that has established the Black middle class in many ways, and political power, right? It is that $20 or $50 or whatever your union dues is a month that goes in collectively with the resources of others, plus your COPE, right, your political action fund, that has allowed us to build enough power to fund our movement. The civil rights movement, the March on Washington for Poverty, Jobs, and Justice was resourced by unions, right? We forget the history that it is the resources of unions that has made it possible for many of the gains that we enjoy today. And so that is why we've seen this attack on unions and we now think they're bad. They're all corrupt. They all mobbed up, right? How in the world is that little Black girl on stage a leader of the union? That's just a bunch of old white men. And it is. It absolutely is. But we have allowed ourselves to believe the story, right, against our own best interest. And so I think we see a revitalization. In the last few years, we've seen up to 78% of young people say, hey, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in coming together with my coworkers to use my power, our ability to come together and do transformational things. And we are seeing, amazing campaigns like Starbucks workers come together, like Amazon workers come together, like Target workers are going to come together, right? And I just think we need more of that. And in unions, we find our agency. We find our individual power. We build our leadership skills. So many folks, that I know have come through unions and learned not just how to organize, but how to be elected officials, how to use power, how to go on and do great things. And so we have to get away from the stories that we've been told and know what has worked for us. And that is coming together to combine our resources and our power to create a world that we all want to live in together.
Thank you, April. So we are going to conclude this panel. It looks like we're running a little behind, so we're going to conclude this panel, but I want to give our panelists an opportunity to close us out. Each person be brief, but close us out if you can, and I'll give you 2 stats to help drive this closing statement. 20% of new businesses close in the first 12 to 18 months. 80% of Black businesses close in the first 12 to 18 months. Second, there's $288 billion that's allocated every year in the venture capital space. So I have a business, I need someone to invest in that business, I go out looking for investments. There's $288 billion allocated every year through that space. Less than 1% goes to Black people. So with those 2 stats, If you can help close us out, and we'll start with Reverend Bryant. What message do you want to leave this audience with, and the folks that are watching across the country? What message do you want to leave them with as to what they can do individually, what we should be thinking about collectively to advance economic opportunity for our community?
I'm a 80s baby, so when I was coming up, Nancy Reagan was First Lady, and she had a campaign said, "Just say no to drugs." This is your brain on drugs with a fried egg. That campaign backfired, and drug usage went up by 72%. The principle is you can't tell people what not to do without telling them what to do. And so while I am championing don't go to Target, don't go to Dollar General, I would be derelict if I didn't tell you do go to black businesses. And so we have pulled together a digital directory with the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce of 250,000 black businesses around the country. And I would champion all of you to download that digital directory. All you have to do is go to targetfast.org, targetfast.org, and within the hour, we will send to you a downloadable directory nationwide of all of those black businesses. I'll close by saying this weekend in Atlanta, we are hosting the Juneteenth Bullseye Black Market of 100 black businesses under one roof at our church. I would challenge all of these churches that are empty Monday through Saturday to transform those into black business market spaces so that we can, in fact, provide an incubator for black businesses, because the overwhelming majority of those black businesses are operated out of the owner's home. So if we can put them in a brick and mortar space, that will help amplify it. So this weekend, while you're wearing red, black, and green and waving the flag, make sure that you don't leave here and go eat Chinese food. Please go support a black business. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Rev. Larry.
You're catching me in my act here. I think a couple things. One, I've learned a lot from this panel, so thank all of you. And one of the things I learned from Rashad is breaking the mold. So I think to answer this question, you got to break the mold. So your question is about venture capital. That doesn't work for us. It's not designed for us. It's not intended for us. It's intended to perpetuate a certain class of people sharing money amongst themselves to allow them to fail the way to success. I spent 21 years working in commuting between DC and San Francisco. I saw more messed up stuff in Silicon Valley than you can ever imagine. The one thing I saw was there was no role for black people, and that was where money was being circulated. You know, you had the whitest black people you ever saw, the whitest black guys, flip-flops, you know, never dated a sister, blah, 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 blah. They couldn't get money, okay? Because it wasn't designed for them. It was intended for people whose families could put money in to actually help them all take risks at different points. We didn't have the starting capital. So my point is pretty simple. What was being done under the Biden administration, which was a new model, which was like, and I think Donald Trump is actually doing it with the steel company in Pittsburgh, where the government is basically investing in a company. Now, if you're going to invest in a company and use the Chinese model of state capitalism, because that's what Donald Trump's doing right now, and that's what Joe Biden was encouraging to be done, make sure the criteria includes us. This gets to Rashad's point about shaping the rules. Let's go with the new rules. Let's create some new rules where we can get that source of capital. The second thing you've heard me tell, I'm a broken record, community development financial institutions. What Congresswoman Maxine Waters did to establish and solidify a capital source in our community is legendary, and we will pay dividends for generations. What she did in the middle of the crisis was say, hey, we got to capitalize these CDFIs with some real money. Here's her brilliant point. We're also going to capitalize with small banks. So you guys have a capital problem too. So small banks, who are usually white, had to team up with CDFIs, which were increasingly becoming people of color and women, to actually get the legislation through against the larger institutions. That law is still in place today. The capital is still in place today. The Trump administration is doing whatever it can to take that capital away. So my third point is your power is your politics. We have to, look, there's a 1 to 3 vote majority in the House of Representatives that passed a tax bill that is heinous. to the point that was being made by the queen of SEIU here, the union person, about union wealth. There are provisions in the bill. This is why you guys have been so successful. They're coming after you again. There are provisions in the bill that basically penalize federal workers who are new for being part of a union. You have to pay more for your retirement if you choose to be in a union than if you don't. And they do that as a trial balloon to come after SEIU at the state and local level and ask me. Because once that model starts working, then they're going to make you pay more. So if you're an at-will employee, you get your retirement at a lower rate, less money. But if you're not an at-will employee, we're going to make you pay. What that says to me is how effective unions are and have become. So keep that in mind about your power. The third thing is, if you live in a district where there are Republican members, show up. Tell them you oppose what's going on and you want to see wealth distributed in the actions of the government, because we cannot leave that off the table. What we saw was the prosperity over the last 4 years, a 4.1% unemployment rate, the growth rates over 2.5%, and the most important statistic, the closing of the gap between blacks and whites on wealth for the first time beyond the 1960s occurred in the Biden years. Those policies worked, and that's why they were determined to destroy them. The only thing that wasn't done was nobody knew about them, which was their fault. And the second thing is they needed Kamala Harris to carry it out to the next term. And that's the power you have to make sure that agenda stays in place, and that we make sure the Democratic Party is held accountable to that agenda, and that we get candidates who actually implement it in 2026 and 2028 because you voted.
Kim.
I want to be brief and just say a couple of things. I wrote down a couple of notes. So my great-grandfather worked at the post office. My grandfather was a meat packer. We were raised always. My mother always called us genius. Some of this is in the power of the mindset. And so when I hear your stack, I actually look and flip it a different way. I want to remind us that, on this power of Juneteenth we stand on the shoulders. And so for me, the few takeaways against the stack are we changed the narrative. And when Jamal mentioned supporting black businesses, we can't scale without the support. I started my business 20-something years old, right out of college, scaled it to a multi-million-dollar enterprise. That's not a flex, it's a praise. But what I can tell you is that in doing that, I always knew, whether it was an economic downturn or pandemic, there's power in the pivot. And what we need to understand right now, and we didn't get to talk about this, is that we cannot afford to be lagging. We need to be leading in the disruption and democratization of AI and tech. That is where we are going. You read it every day, and how Fortune 100 global corporations, they're telling us the entry-level jobs that we once knew to get us on that track, they're going away. I read an article today in Columbus, Ohio's Dispatch about how Ohio State is creating curriculum for all students. They don't care about your major, because they realize if we do not upskill and have those skills. So if you are not using ChatGPT now, you're late. We need to understand that that is where the world is headed. And for us, as we look to the stack and where we are going to be relevant, we're going to definitely need to be a part of that, the ways in which technology is moving forward. Lastly, I'll say, in underscoring one of Jamal's points, most businesses, as you know them, while we're starting them, are solopreneurs. They're lifestyle businesses. And that's fine. I tell folks, everybody doesn't need to be the Amazon, right? But what we do need to make sure that we are doing is collectively looking at the economics, collectively looking at the resources, and where is it and how is it that we will push these businesses forward. And that may be joint ventures. Like, we need to understand too where and how we sustain and grow smarter and faster.
Let me just say one thing back to what was said here, just 20 seconds, which is that when you look at AI and tech,
They're going to kill me because we're running out of time, but go
When you
ahead.
look at AI and tech, rules matter. And so somebody's going to set those rules. Be sure you're at the table for the rule setting.
So
Okay,
I want to try
April.
to be brief. I know we're running out of time. I want us to understand there is a through line from the time our ancestors were put on slave ships to today that is built on white supremacy, corporate greed, economic exploitation that required us to devalue our own dignity and worth. And it is the same perpetuation that we exist in today. So first I want us to have to understand that. And then understand it requires us coming together collectively to require a new social compact with corporations that center us and our well-being. I am not anti-corporation. I am pro-shared prosperity. We can no longer settle for others making money off of us and our labor without giving back what we deserve, without giving us our just due. And so let us and not be passive about what are we doing wrong. It is what are we doing to hold corporations accountable for doing what is right. And it takes us understanding our worth, our dignity, our power to start there. And it does take us coming together to be able to create that.
Okay, Rashad, last word.
I think in every strategy, it's understanding what your advantages are, what your power is, what works in your favor and what doesn't work in your favor. I'm 5'3", and my dad is also 5'3", and so he always taught me, it's like, folks may come after you, and so you're gonna have to figure out how to make someone pay so they don't keep coming after you. You may lose, but someone's gotta pay along the way. And I say that to say that we live in a capitalist country, but we also live in a racist country. And the racism and the capitalism go hand in hand. So when we design our strategies and the work forward, pretending like we don't live in a racist country will make it so we design the wrong thing to do the next thing, right? And so over the next 5 to 8 years, with generative AI, so many of the things that we have used to actually move ourselves forward, whether it's regulation and legislation, voting, strikes, protest, all of those things will be deeply disruptive. You can't actually have a protest the same way if surveillance and AI models makes it so they don't have to send people to come and stop it. So it means that we need a new level of innovation. We need to actually not just have presence on these platforms the way we tried to have presence and actually never got regulation on the platforms or rules that actually dictate that. And so over the coming years, the work that I'm going to really be doing is to sort of quote and pull from Bayard Rustin, is to find what the new sticks in the spoke look like. Because we're going to need a new set of tactics and behaviors that actually hold our opponents accountable, that stop their movement, that actually shift power. And if we're not doing that, if we're still playing the old rules and the old structures, we're walking into systems designed for us to fail. And so my invitation to all of us in this room is to be part of something in your community, to add your voice to something bigger, and to us continue to think about how do we not just look backwards at what we've done, but look forward to the types of innovation and activities that are actually going to build the type of power that changes the rules. Because at the end of the day, the technology that has so much potential to move us into the future is dragging us into the past. And we're not going to just simply be able to use it to outpace our opponents, because even when you think about the environmental implications of AI and everything that's happening with pollution, they're putting all of that into our communities. And they're taking, and all of the sort of innovation and dollars are actually happening outside of our communities. We have the ability to not say we're not going to use that technology. I've innovated on this technology. I've used it to build power and to lead campaigns. But we have to think about all of the ways in which the technology, the tools, and our work moving forward will help maximize our ability to win and win things that are real.
Thank you all. Reverend Jamal Bryant, Larry Parks, Kim Blackwell, April Varad, Rashad Robinson, I'm Alfonso David. It has been a pleasure to moderate this panel. I will now turn it back over to you.
y'all hear me? Okay, they can't hear me. Y'all give it up for me one more time. These are heads of industry who are leading in high spaces on our behalf. I'm so glad to hear that they have the heart of our people. Isn't that important? That they have the heart of our people when they are sitting? Because we don't always get to those rooms, but they are. And so right now we understand that we need leaders who have the heart of people who can go in these rooms. So my name is DeWanna Thompson. I'm so proud to serve as a National Cities Lead. And one of the things that we have been really trying to do is make sure that we root everything that we do with what has happened before us. We know that there are those who've gone before us who have paved the way for us. They had traditions, they had strategies that worked. One of those strategies is, because I don't want this to happen. Okay. One of those strategies and one of those traditions was that when they gathered together, many times as mass meetings, they had to bring the spirit in the room. They had to have some kind of music, some kind of sound that allowed the people to know that we've got a power greater than us. They had to have a moment where they collectively came on one accord and said, there's a sound. There is something that's happening. There's something that's tapping into the atmosphere. And so I'm so honored because my friend, one of my best friends, he's been following the State of the People tour with us. And he said, listen, D, he called me, he said, whatever I need to do, I'm there. He likes to say that I am Martin and he's Mahalia, right? You need that in the movement. You need people and their gifts. And so it is my pleasure for a moment to bring out my best friend, Grammy Award-winning, Stellar Award-winning, brilliant author and professor, Jonathan McReynolds.
How y'all feeling? Come on, y'all gotta make a little more noise now. How y'all feeling? All right, now listen, I'm not from the DMV area. I don't know where I am right now. All I saw was a huge church that came out of nowhere called Empowerment Temple. So I just need y'all to help me get my bearings straight and just point me to the people that love God. Where y'all at? Come on, I need y'all to scream like you really love him. Come on. If you love Jesus, I need y'all to go ahead and make some noise in this house. Come on. Yeah. Can y'all hear this? I knew it when a fly slapped me in the face this morning. I knew it when there was construction the whole way here. I knew it when my sinuses were blocked for no reason. It's a new season. It's a new day. There's a fresh anointing, and it's flowing my way. It's a season of power and prosperity. It's a new season, and it's coming to me. Oh, come on, say, it's a new season. It's a new day. There's a fresh anointing, and it's flowing my way. Oh, it's a season of power and prosperity. It's a new season, and it's coming because I'm ending Didn't I conquer this last year? Tell me what I missed, 'cause I fear that is coming back up again. Must be something I ate, some song, some show, some hate. The devil wants to extend the game. Yeah, free throws. And when it ends, he wants to make the sequel. 'Cause if he gets another chance, he feels like he can take my joy, my peace, my faith. See, the devil, he learns from your mistakes, even if you don't. That's how he keeps us in cycles. Cycles. He wants to keep us in cycles. Cycles. I don't know about y'all, but I'm not staying in cycles. Cycles. We're here because we're not staying in cycles. Cycles. Oh, so Lord, help me be free from all of my past sin. See, your love is enough to make me new and help me end these cycles. Help me sing this song. Help me break these cycles. Come on, y'all gotta help me in these. Hey, Lord, get us out of these. All of America's. Oh, help us break these. Oh, generational. Hey, psychological. Hey, financial side. Oh, political side. Oh, help me break these cycles. Oh, these cycles. I'm gonna tell you how we're gonna do it. There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus. Hey, see, there is power in the name of Jesus. What? To break every cycle. To break every cycle. Come on, declare that over yourself. Say, there is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus. Yeah. There is power in the name of Jesus to break every cycle, to end every cycle, to break every cycle, to break every cycle. Now listen, I've done it about 4 times now. So I think y'all should be able to sing it by now. And I need y'all to declare, because in this season we might need it. Try. Let me hear y'all sing it. Go. Y'all ain't even trying. Come on, let me hear y'all sing it. Go. Some of y'all just making up anything. Because listen, at some point this week, somebody gonna cuss you out. And I need y'all not to use the same language that you used before Christ. Just look at them with a big smile and say, what? Sometimes when I drive by Washington, D.C., it reminds me of some of the things that are going on in there, and I just have to say, you.